I feel like whatever is going to connect you to God, universe, higher source, whatever I will say God, whatever connects you to that is what you need.
Yeah.
And your story is your story.
Hello there. It's Mandy Woodard, and this is Courageous Conversations. The show is all about our life journey and the growing and healing we go through. Sometimes it takes great courage to step out of where we are and choose a different path. I started this show because I wanted you to know that you are not alone, no matter where you are in your life journey. And my hope is that you will hear a story that I share or a conversation that I have, and you will get something out of it. You will have an aha moment or a realization, and you'll know what you need to do, because it is my belief that we are all here to help each other grow and become the best version of ourselves and find what our purpose is. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Let's get started. Hello. Welcome to the podcast. Episode 36. It is Tuesday, September 5th, 2023 at the time of uploading this. And I'm actually recording this intro on Tuesday. Sometimes I do it in advance and then get it uploaded on a schedule, but your girl just don't have it together today or yesterday or the day before or the day before. It was Labor Day weekend. My kids were off Friday and then they were off Monday. Here I'm trying to get adjusted to a new schedule, and yeah, is anybody else struggling with this? And I hate even putting it out there because it's like, okay, do we really want to use the words I'm struggling? No, that doesn't create a positive reality for ourselves when we say that. But we also got to be real. We got to be honest. And it's been rough. I've started my morning pages 3 or 4 times this morning. So morning pages, I can't remember if I've mentioned this yet or not. It's where I just write. You just free write 2 or 3 pages every day. Whatever comes to you. It doesn't matter. There's no rules around this. But the point is to get whatever's in your head out and on the paper. So I have been doing this since the beginning of July, and I really love it. It's helped me tap into some things that I did not realize were kind of stuck inside me. And that's the thing. That's the journey. Being able to try all these different things to figure out what it is that you need to get out whatever is stuck inside you. So whether that's through writing or a yoga practice, meditation, Reiki sessions, my personal favorite. There's so many ways to allow your body to heal itself, and you are meant to heal. We are meant to heal. Nothing is meant to stay broken. And so this is one of my little things that I've been doing for myself every day. But today it's been difficult because I don't know. It's Tuesday morning. Feels like a Monday. Energy has been weird over the last couple weeks. I don't know if it has been for you. Of course, we had 6 planets in retrograde last week, if you pay attention to that sort of thing. I know I felt totally just blah. I have no words for it other than that. Friday, though, my friend Suzanne Mellott came over, and I really hope I'm saying her last name right because my gracious, I've been friends with this woman for years now. I should know how to say her name. But she came over and we chatted for a bit, and it was really nice to get it recorded because it really is like our everyday conversations. You really just got to be a fly on the wall. We talk about deep stuff all the time. It's just, we both are that way. So I feel like it was a good conversation. I'm excited for you to hear it. One thing I will say, and we did talk about this, is Suzanne was one of my first life coaching clients. She genuinely pushed me into that direction because I kept saying, I don't know if I'm ready to coach other people. Whatever the story I was telling myself at that time. And she's like, nope, you are. I can see it. You are. And so that's what started my coaching journey. And funny enough, in my memories this morning on Facebook, that I love to just reflect on and look at. I saw that in 2019, I posted on this day, starting my coaching business. And I was just like, wow, I did not realize it's been that long that I've been doing this. And how awesome to just kind of look back on that and see how far I've come. Because man, my coaching style has changed. The way I operate has changed. And it's just, I don't know, it's really cool to reflect back on that. And we have to make sure we are doing that. That's almost a little lesson in itself. It's like, if you think you're not where you're supposed to be, just take a second and turn around and look and ask yourself, where were you 3 years ago? Hey, even 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. I guarantee you've moved the needle in your life. If you haven't, then use this as your sign to hire a coach or dive in, get a personal development book, see what it is that you can tap into so that you can also grow. Because we are not meant to stay in one place. We are truly meant to grow. And speaking of growing, one thing that we didn't get a chance to talk about that I really had wanted to talk about with her was the fact that when I first started seeing her, we talked about goals and dreams and what she had on her vision board. And one of the things she had on her vision board was a beach house. She didn't know how she was ever going to make that happen. She really didn't. But don't you know, this woman got a beach house, I think within 2 or 3 years of that conversation. But when we had it, when we were first talking about it, just like last week when I was talking about, I'm not sure how I would ever be able to move into the house that I want to move into. You don't have to know the how. You just have to know what. And I love her story in terms of manifesting and creating this reality because she's so damn good at it. It's such an obvious thing to be able to show you like, hey, this is possible. You can do that. You can put stuff on a vision board and you can check it off. It might not happen in a year. It might not happen in 2 years. But if you keep at it, you'll get it. You'll get there. That's really quite enough from me. I want you to just hear our conversation now. And of course, if you get something out of this, I would love to hear it. You're welcome to tag either one of us on social media. My handle is @lifewithmandy_ and hers is @IamSuzanne Mellott. So, okay. Here is my courageous conversation with my friend, Suzanne. Suzanne, thank you so much for coming to my neck of the woods.
Of course.
You came over the mountain, over to my neck of the woods, which I was about to say I don't have woods, but I actually do have woods right in my backyard.
You sure do.
I'm so excited you're here though, because Wounds to Wisdom, that's your podcast, but I feel like it is so fitting for you because you do have so much wisdom.
Thank you.
And I have wanted you to come and just banter with me, really. Like,
it's what we do best.
Yeah. Well, I don't prep my guests because I just really like the banter, the back and forth. So for you though, you have so much wisdom. Where do we even begin? Where do we begin? Why don't we do this? You tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now, like what you're up to.
Okay. I'm Suzanne. I live on a small farm in West Virginia. And oh gosh, where do I start? Well, I've been married to my high school sweetheart for almost 24 years. We have 4 children and we just started year 14 of homeschooling.
Yeah.
So pray for me, continue. Or them, really. And so this season in life is kind of wild because we have 3 teenagers and then we have an 11-year-old. And so, I feel like we're kind of, I don't want to say an expert, but like we've been through all of the stages now of parenting. So,
Oh, you're an expert. What do they say? You have to do something for 10 years and then you become an expert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You're an expert.
Yeah. Thank you. I will take that. And so, now I'm to the point where I'm really enjoying parenting and stepping back and learning more about who I am as a parent to each child. And now it's more, I think I'm moving into a season of, okay, now I'm not in, really deep into the young children parenting years. Now what?
Yeah.
Who am I now that I don't have this huge, not that you don't have a huge role in their lives as they're older, but it's different.
Yeah.
And so, I've had many past lives, you could say. I've been a speech pathologist, I've been a photographer, I've been a network marketing professional, and as of late, an energy healer and life coach, and an author, and just started a podcast myself. And so I feel like I'm just kind of going, okay, let's try this.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try this.
But isn't that part of your human design as a Manny Gen? You got to be able to jump around and do what lights your sacral up.
Yes. Carrying like 5 different buckets all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was doing that, but that wasn't in alignment for me as a projector. I got to just do one thing.
Yes.
And focus on one thing.
Yes. Focus that wisdom.
Yeah. It's funny because Richie, my husband, is a Manny Gen also. And he blows me away with being able to like load the washer and get the dishwasher going and make the coffee and then log into work and get started. And I'm just like stumbling down the stairs. Like,
that's the secret. If you can like load us properly, we'll get it all done in like 10 minutes.
So we met. I just want to touch on how we met because I feel like it was total divine guidance. Mm-hmm. And what's so funny is how we've had such similar histories. Well, I never was a speech pathologist, but I was a photographer and you were that. And I hosted an event for the company we were working with here and you came, and I will never forget meeting you. I swear I will never forget meeting you because you got there and I was like, whoa, this is a connection. Yeah. Like I felt that connection. Mm-hmm. And even after all is said and done with that, because I don't know that either of us are really present in that space anymore, we still stay connected. Absolutely. So I definitely feel like there was so much that came from that time of my life, and you would probably say the same, but it very much was the connection thing for me. It's like I needed to meet the people that I met, and you were one of those people. So now you do energy work and coaching and healing in that capacity, but I would love to hear about how you, oh my God, how could I forget this too? Do you know what I'm about to say? Probably not.
I think so.
So when I was starting life coaching, if there was ever a person pushing me in the door to life coach, it was you. Yeah. Because you were like, oh no, you're a coach and you're going to coach me. And I'm like, I don't even know what to charge. I don't know. I don't think I did. I think you just sent me money randomly and that was that.
And honestly, do you realize that you're the one that pushed me into the energy work?
Oh my gosh. So you pushed me into coaching and then I pushed you into I love it.
Because I love when a projector sees me.
Yeah.
Because you don't experience that much in the world. And when a projector sees you at your core and believes in you and sees it, that's when I tend to take things seriously, because my husband's a projector as well.
Yeah.
And you pushed me into
that gave me chills.
Reiki and like, I think you really need to look into this.
I do remember saying
And you
that.
remember all of my religious like, no.
Yes. Oh, I love that you just said that, because I wanted to talk about that today. Because, oh my gosh, the hang up that can happen there. And I mean, just to be so raw and honest, we both have had this conversation lately about seeing the negative of the energy work floating around the internet. And it's not it's not in accordance to the Bible or whatever it may be. And I don't ever mean to offend anybody, because you are very much entitled to have what you believe and what's right and true for you. And then so are we.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that when you get into that mindset or that habit or that echo chamber of bashing what you hate instead of promoting what you love, you shut out any possibility of hearing that person's story and that person's journey, and you invalidate what they had to embody to get to where they are.
Yeah.
And get to their belief system.
Yeah. Gosh, I've really watched you just transform over the last several years then. Because that was probably, when did we start that?
Oh gosh, that
2019?
was, yeah.
Okay, so in 2019, so Suzanne was my first official client. And then I do very much remember challenging your beliefs every single time. Okay, well, why do you believe that? Okay, well, why do you believe that? And why do you believe that? And I think I got Reiki in 2018 was the start of that. So I didn't really even know a lot about it then. But I think I took you to a Reiki circle.
You did.
Yeah.
You invited me to a Reiki circle. That was kind of my little baby step into.
Yeah.
And I had growing up Catholic, I had anyone who's Catholic knows, we are used to the smells and the bells and the traditional pieces and the sacredness of those traditions. That was what I loved most about that faith. And so all throughout growing up, I had these experiences that felt very deeply connected, very deeply connected to God. But growing up in an area where it was primarily Protestant and non-denominational, and I just didn't feel like I could share those things, even though I knew people in my family were also or in the past had also experienced things like this.
Yeah.
That could really be defined in the energy arena.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Are you meaning like the intuitive stuff and the visions and things like that?
And the visions and the gifts and the messages received. And I think that anyone who believes in a higher source, whatever you subscribe to, has experienced things like that that really don't have a full-blown explanation.
Right. There is no full-blown explanation.
There is, and there isn't meant to be.
Yeah.
But it was the belief systems that were taught that I felt like I kept bumping up against. Yeah. And I'd bumped up against them all of my life. I just wasn't vocal about them.
Oh, and probably pushing it away.
I absolutely stuffed it.
So your intuition's bubbling up and you're like, I should question this. And then it's like,
yes.
And not to say any of those things are also wrong. Like anybody who still subscribes to a specific religion, like, I don't hate on that at all.
Not at all, because I feel like whatever is going to connect you to God, universe, higher source, whatever I will say God, whatever connects you to that is what you need.
Yeah.
And your story is your story. And so I don't invalidate anyone's experiences. Right. But I found that as you and I started those discussions and kind of opened up, gave me a safe place to discuss it.
Yeah.
That is what I would like to thank you for, because I couldn't go to anyone else. Because it wasn't a safe place, a non-judgmental space to be able to do so.
Yeah.
And when you started saying, but why do you believe that? And I really didn't have an answer that sat well. It was just because. Yeah. And
I think you said that a couple times.
Yes. And it was I could see where you're coming from, but and I just kept coming back to the very dogmatic kind of place where and again, there's nothing wrong with where you stand and where you choose your community.
Right.
In order to feel supported and safe in your beliefs. But you need a safe space to be able to ask questions, and not to hate on it, but to expand your faith, your growth. And when you don't have those safe places, you'll, number one, stay small. Number two, you'll never have the depth of understanding that you are craving.
Yeah.
And the depth of connection.
Yeah.
Because now when someone says, why do you believe what you believe? I have more of an answer. I wouldn't say I have the answer, because I don't think we're ever going to have it.
But it's visceral.
Exactly.
You feel it.
I feel it.
I mean, Richie has asked me this so many times. And I mean, we've even talked about on the podcast here how different our beliefs are. And he has said to me, like, well, so he believes in nothing. And I believe in all the things. And he's like, how come you don't come to my side? And it's because I feel it.
You know it.
Like, my clients probably think I'm crazy because when something intuitive comes through, like I literally like feel it in my mouth. I'm like, I look insane right now, but I feel it. Mm-hmm. I feel the words so deeply. You can't tell me otherwise.
Exactly. And that's where I feel like everyone should be in their faith.
Yeah. Feel it so deeply.
So passionately. Not even so passionately, because that was somewhere where I felt, I don't know how I want to say it, but I felt so passionate about these things.
Oh, yeah. Like almost like righteousness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I feel like someone feels passionate, but it's like, but why do you feel passionate? Because that's what I've been taught, or that's what I've been told. Do you feel it? If you feel it, I am going to honor it, and I'm going to love you for having that connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you are only doing it on a surface level, which I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because everyone's at their own level of awareness.
Yeah.
And we all have our own life experiences, and you and I are going to have more. But I feel like I'm at a place where I'm no longer judging or invalidating someone's experiences, but learning.
Mm-hmm.
So you and I can disagree on something, but I'm going to learn something from your journey. You're going to learn something from mine.
Yeah.
Or something's going to roll off your tongue that's going to make me go, wait.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or, okay, she said that, but that's not what I believe. Okay, this is what I, like, it's going to, And so it's actually a very fun process to be open and a safe place, because I was not a safe place for people to share unless they were in my echo chamber.
Right. Well, gosh, that awareness. Mm-hmm. And that's just what I was going to say too, is like you get to this point when you go through this journey where you then start to recognize and realize that everything that's happening is triggering you for good or for bad to teach you something.
Yes.
So even when you're scrolling on the internet and somebody's like, Reiki is evil, we talked about this because we both had a similar experience recently where we're like, oh, that didn't trigger me as much as it would have a few months ago or a year ago. And now it's just like, okay, that's their experience. Mm-hmm. That's what they feel is true.
Yes.
But what do I know is true? What do I feel? And we checked in with ourselves. So it's like, the awareness that the triggers are there for a purpose. It's like that quote. I heard Tony Robbins say it a lot, but I know others have too. Mm-hmm. It's life is not happening to you. It's happening for you.
Exactly.
It's really understanding that.
Yes. And recognizing it. There's so many different layers because, a year or 2 years ago, if we would have seen someone or someone would have said, oh, you're evil for doing this or that, we would have been triggered. And now because I think a lot of the times people are so protective of what they believe in.
Yeah.
I know that throughout my life, I've had experiences where the layers have been ripped away.
Yeah.
For life choices that my husband and I have made or not made. And I've always said, my decision does not impact you.
Right.
My decision does not impact you unless I am physically hurting someone.
Right.
My decision does not impact you. For example, homeschooling.
Yeah.
I won't mention other, drama-inducing stuff. But like, for example, homeschooling. Just because I choose to homeschool does not mean I am saying that if you public school, you are less than.
Yes.
That's not what I am saying at all.
I know exactly.
It is a personal choice.
Right.
And so when we come to the idea of faith, my decision to believe what I believe does not impact you.
Right.
And people become very defensive when you ask a question. I used to become defensive all the time. And right around the same time that you're saying that you were asking me in 2019, well, why do you believe that? She would have been 15. My 15-year-old daughter said, why do we believe what we believe?
Isn't that funny?
And my husband and I looked at each other and went, crap.
Yeah. Oh, well, I
It was
love that our kids trigger us too.
Man. And that's the thing. If you look at that as, and it's changed the way I parent, it's changed the way I communicate, it has changed the way I operate every day. Because instead of looking at it as a trigger in a bad way, it's a trigger like, okay, thank you. That's feedback for me that I really did not heal that piece of me, or that's another layer. Didn't we just say that this morning?
We just said that this morning.
Yeah.
We just said that this morning because my gosh, is it just an ever evolving thing.
But it's happening for us,
and
right?
it's happening for you to keep shedding it and bring you to your highest and best self.
Yes. Well, and it's going back and getting those pieces. If I could go back to 2019, Suzanne, and go just stick with it.
Yeah.
Keep going. You know you've been on this path. And those imprints, the energetic imprints of the wounds and the triggers and all of those things, they still exist.
Yeah.
And they exist in positive ways and negative ways to how we live today because we carry it through.
Yeah.
And in 2019, I made the conscious choice to go, I'm not backing away this time.
Yeah.
I'm not going deeper into the echo chamber. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to stand in the gap and I'm going to get some answers. And as I kept going through the highs and the lows, it was like, but I could see what it was doing in a positive way, even though it felt really bad and really challenging. It was still, I know this is happening for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't know the reason. I know it's happening though for me. I'm not going to let it pull me down into the pits.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going. And so I'm thankful for the imprints of, it was a trauma. Like, what do you mean? What? Because that was my entire life,
right?
And my identity, my whole identity was wrapped in that.
Yeah,
And at one point, I felt like the foundation just completely crumbled.
Is that not what we call the dark night of the soul?
It's very, very dark,
and still comes back around. I still have this. This is what we were talking about. It's like, so same here. I'm a little different because I went to church growing up, but by the time I was 10, I wasn't going to church anymore. But I have always had this strong connection to Jesus, and I've always felt energy. And that's what I was going to actually bring this around to is like, even though you were in that space, I'm sure your whole life you've experienced these things. I always have experienced feeling the energy or getting those intuitive downloads or psychic messages. I just didn't know how to harness it.
Yes.
And it even scared me sometimes if like a spirit would come through. I remember literally shaking, like, what is happening right now? And then it's like you get to come into this space now where you can receive it and there is no fear and you know that there is nothing wrong with you. That's the thing.
Yes.
I don't want to label anything, but it's like the upbringing and society would tell you there's something wrong with you.
Yes.
When there's actually nothing wrong with you. So like, how could I be born and be this way? And all these people are over here saying like, that's the devil. You're evil. But what we're doing is helping so many people.
Yes. The impact is so incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had somebody tell me a couple months ago, I ran into them. They had a session a year ago, one session, and told me that they no longer have this reoccurring nightmare that they'd had for the last 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. How the hell can you ever tell me that that's wrong?
And the fact that what we do brings so much unity versus division.
Yes.
And I've had that experience with clients as well, where they will tell me, I don't walk through the world the same. I had one session with you, an hour.
Yeah.
And I walk through the world differently now.
Yeah.
I approach my relationships differently now. The way I see the world has changed.
Yeah.
And it brings so much more love into the world versus you're wrong, I'm right, you're,
right.
You're this way, I'm that way. No.
Yeah.
No, we bring unity.
Yeah. It's just a calling to like open the heart and open the mind and then
Yes.
connect the two in the process. Wow, that's so beautiful. Recently, though, you got invited to contribute to a book. I would love to hear about that. If you want to like tell me about the chapter and...
Absolutely. So I was invited to be a part of a collaboration, an author collaboration. And many of the people, the authors that contributed, were part of Authentic Living, which is a organization, a company that I've been studying with for like 5 years, almost 5 years now. And so we all were asked to contribute to a book that talks about wounds, kind of like a wounds for wisdom kind of thing, where how do you heal the wounds of the past to live an authentic life? Mm-hmm. And so both my husband and I actually wrote a chapter, and you'll have to have him on for another day.
Yes, I really want to. Yeah.
Because his style is completely different than mine.
Yeah.
But the chapter was, I initially got involved because I love the people. I loved the meaning behind it, but it was more of, I just want to put something out there. Mm-hmm. Because if just even a few people read this chapter and realize, wow, that's kind of similar to my situation as well.
Yeah.
And it actually ended up being very, as it is, all benefits are mutual, very healing and cathartic for me. Mm-hmm. Because I went into a meditation really, just asking God, like, what message do I need to pull through for the people who are going to read this book? What's going to be for the greatest good? What's going to really open people's hearts and really just make an impact? And I got this meditation, which ended up being something I offer now, which is the timeline shift. And it's talking about how when you go back in time, mm-hmm. if I took you into a meditation and I said, there's going to be a version of younger you come up to you. Mm-hmm. That age, you're not going to have to think about what age comes up.
Yeah.
That age of you, that younger you is going to come up, whether it's age 5, 15, 22. That age is going to come up. And that's because the energetic imprint of whatever was around that time period, whether it was a specific experience or it was just for me, mm-hmm. my younger self came through. I think it was around age 9. There wasn't any traumas or anything, but what I realized was that was the fully embodied Suzanne. Before the traumas, before the conditioning, before everything in the world told me to be this way, not this way.
Yeah.
And it took me back to a fully joyful, fully expressed Suzanne. And it made me recognize she's still here.
Yes.
I can be that.
Yes.
I can go back to that and bring it into age 45 now. Mm-hmm. And so my chapter is really about what ages came up for me and why, and how I expressed to my younger self and what my younger self expressed to me. Within 15 minutes, I had shifted myself. Yeah. And I want to teach people how to do that because I embrace all kinds of inner work, all kinds of methodologies. But if I can bring someone within 20 minutes healing and shifting, and then teach them how to do it for themselves, to continue to do that once they've left me, mm-hmm. that's huge.
Yeah.
The ripple impact that has not just on me, but on my family and how my family interacts and just the ripple of the thousands of souls you can touch. That's why I contributed.
Yeah.
Because I thought that's going to impact someone.
Right.
And that someone is going to impact, and it's just going to keep going.
Well, I think even just talking about it right here.
Yeah.
And, well, I'll tell you, I'll be your first someone. I'll be your first someone because what's really funny, collective consciousness, man.
It's real.
Oh, my gosh. So you're sitting here telling me all of this. And literally Tuesday, I had a session with my own therapist. Yeah. And she's so amazing. But she's like, we need to go back in time mm-hmm. and heal that little version of you.
Yes.
And you're sitting here talking about that. So yesterday when I came home, I went and had a massage yesterday and came home and was like, you know what? I'm going to take a nap. So I cut meditation music on and without even trying, mm-hmm. 10-year-old Mandy just pops in And it was like, oh, I need to give her a hug. Yep. And so I like sat in that space until I drifted. And then I fell asleep for like 30 solid minutes.
She did her work on you.
And she did her work. And I was like, when you're in those sleep meditations, you can feel yourself traveling through the ethers. Like,
yep.
It sounds wild, but it happens.
It happens.
It very much happens. So like I was like traveling through the universe the whole time I was sleeping. I could feel it. But it started with that 10-year-old. So yeah, we don't recognize and realize how much we need to go back in time.
And healing that imprint, she could give you that piece of herself that she protected.
Yeah.
That you couldn't carry with you till today, and now you have it back.
Yeah.
You're more whole. You're more authentic.
Yeah. Oh, man. And something else, collective consciousness. Again, I had multiple sessions this week with different people, and it was the same thing. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, in my Instagram feed, because they read your thoughts now, I have Brene Brown talking about the armor that we put on when we were kids. Absolutely. And carried it through, and it's no longer serving you where you are.
Exactly. It's holding you stuck. It's keeping you stuck.
Yes.
It's too heavy.
Yes. And it's time to put it down.
And it's the forgiveness for that 10-year-old Mandy, or for that 13-year-old Suzanne. You were doing the best you absolutely could with what you had.
Yeah.
And so your responses and your armor that you started to put on was the best you had.
Yeah.
But now you have the tools where you don't need the armor.
Yeah. And honestly, too, though, you have to do this sort of thing multiple
over
times.
And over again.
Because I've done spirit releases. Didn't I talk to you? We never actually did a spirit release.
I don't think so. We've talked about it.
Yeah, doing the spirit release because it's a similar thing. It's like that attachment to try and help you through a time. And now it's time to let it go.
Let go.
Yeah. So it's like Brene Brown says it in the way of psychology, because I think she's probably more logical. She might be spiritual. Yeah. I'm not sure, actually. Yeah. But she says it in more of a science-based way.
Yes.
But then we have it in the energetic-based way. And we're literally saying the same things. Yes. We're just getting there in different ways.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing with religion. And that's what's so hilarious. And you said this a little bit ago, because I went to a Catholic funeral last summer. And it was the first time that I really was like, oh, yeah, there's the holy water. There's the bells. There's the incense. There's all the things. I literally do this to cleanse my office.
Exactly.
And with the idea
now
for me.
Now you know why I loved it.
Yeah. The idea for me that I do have Jesus beside me as my spirit guide.
Yes.
And do it. So it's like, it's the same thing. We're saying the same things.
And that's the thing, is if we just stopped with all of the words and just came together and went, but we all want the same thing.
Yeah. And
does it matter if you found it by summer Bible school and I found it through walking in the woods, which is exactly how I found it, and you found it through Reiki, and I found it. Does it matter when we all, the fruits are what speak, not the words and the behaviors. It's the fruits of your behaviors.
And serve all, love all.
Yes, for the greatest good of everyone. So.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, listen. Here's the thing. I wanted to shift gears, but I wrote something down that you said to me last year. But I don't know where that Post-it is. I just randomly write things on Post-its and then they cover my screen, but I guess I decided to clean. Like, what the... Who does that? Not me. I think it was something in regards to your human story versus your soul story.
Yes.
And I don't even know why you said it to me, because you were coaching me at that point, and you said it. And I was like, write that down. I need you to come on the podcast and say that. Just explain it, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I learned it through my mentor. But it's something that all of us know. I think that even if we cannot agree on what we quote unquote believe in as a higher source, we can all believe, most of us, that we are not just the human body. Like we have a soul living a human experience, right? We're not a human living a soul experience. It's vice versa. And so when you look at and you separate those two things, Okay. Because most people believe that when the body dies, the soul is still in existence. And if you want to get sciencey, there's the energy, right? Because it's not in physical form. And so that's why people believe that their departed ones, their souls, they can still feel them. Well, of course they can.
Yeah.
So your soul, if it only lives through however many years you're here on earth, it has things that it wants to learn and it wants to experience and expand upon. And so, but the human story is just that, what you're experiencing here and now in, my 45 years here on earth in, from 1977 to 2023. That is what I'm experiencing, my human story. And I can get locked up in that. I can get locked up in what's in this world, what's on the news, what's happening in my family, what is stressing me out. Oh my gosh, it's 5 o'clock. I have no idea what I want to make for dinner. Like all of those things that stress us out. Oh my gosh, I've, low thyroid, whatever it is, health-wise or anything. That's the human experience.
Yeah.
The soul is one where it's, what can I learn from this? How can I grow myself? What can I experience? Oh my gosh, I'm experiencing stress. I'm experiencing, this low frequency, shame or guilt. Oh my gosh, this person's incredible. I'm experiencing unconditional love and high frequency energy. So when you zoom out and look at, when you feel burnout and overwhelm, if you can pull up and almost like access your soul self and go, what are we supposed to be learning from this? I know it's not for nothing.
Yeah.
And start to look at what's been the patterns of, you were just talking about patterns with me where it's like, where do you find your value? And there's these certain patterns in your life that you keep you keep experiencing. Yeah. Obviously, for me, one of those pieces I'm just not getting because it keeps happening. Yeah. So then if I can just zoom up and see the forest for the trees and go, oh, I'm finding my value here. That's not where my value is.
Yeah.
My value is within, not outside of me.
Yeah.
And so if you can have that level of awareness where your human story does not take over.
Right.
And you go, your period of overwhelm and you go, okay, wait, what can this teach me right now? That's your soul story.
And so I want to put this in like layman's terms. So maybe we give an actual example. A human story would be like, so-and-so is over there talking about me, they're gossiping about me, whatever. And then you get so caught up on the fact that these people are doing this. But the soul story, zoom out. There's a lesson in this. Maybe you trusted somebody and you had to learn a lesson there. I don't know. I'm making this up on the cuff.
But
if you have another
true
example, please. Like,
sure.
Or I got fired and now I'm going to lose everything because I lost my income. And that feels huge.
And it is. It is. In the human story, these things are real and the traumas are real and the, bankruptcy or injuries or illness, that's real. So I don't want anyone to go, it's fine to hang out in the soul story, but this stuff is really, really hard.
It is.
And we all have those things.
And the feelings that come up for you are valid in that process.
Yes.
But the zoom out is where you get to see, okay.
That's where the wisdom is.
That's happening for this reason, and this happened for this reason, and I needed to be out of this space, or I needed to do this.
And it's hard to do it when you're in the moment.
Right. And you're really
like
not.
The level of awareness you have to take 5 steps back and get that curiosity of like, but why am I feeling this way? Why am I triggered? Sometimes you're not going to realize you're triggered over something.
Yeah.
So for example, let's use the homeschooling example. Okay. It's a little less political. Someone questions, well, how are your kids going to be socialized as homeschoolers? Because that's something I get all the time, or used to anyway, until they saw my children realize it's not an issue. And I would get very defensive.
Yeah.
And I would start going, well, when is it normal to sit in class, and my reasons behind why I chose homeschooling.
Right.
And I would get so like that righteous passion would come up in me, that righteous, quote unquote, righteous anger would come up in me and go, how dare you?
Right.
Why would you question that? Well, here's the thing. Number one, they shouldn't be, because my decision does not impact your decision.
Right.
However, my identity was so wrapped in being a homeschooler.
Yeah.
That when someone questioned me, and they could have just asked me a question like, oh, so how are you going to do the social aspect so they're around more than just their siblings? That's a harmless question
Yeah.
and a valid question. And I could have just said, oh, well, we go to the library and we have a co-op and we do a lot here and we volunteer here.
Right.
I could have answered it that way. But because my identity was so wrapped in being the perfect homeschooling example,
right,
they were questioning my identity of who I was.
Yeah.
But when I zoomed out and went, Suzanne, they were just asking a question. They were genuinely curious.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into fight mode, attack mode.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pattern for me, because anything that I chose to add to my belief system,
Mm-hmm.
my religious background, my homeschooling, our health choices, all of those things, I would wrap my identity in it.
Yeah.
My whole self, like who I was that. Then anytime anyone would question it, and you felt it with my religion.
Yeah.
That was me. Why are you questioning who I am as a person? I'm a good person.
And so what's the soul story?
So the soul story is going, that isn't you. That's your belief.
Yeah.
But it's not who you are at the core.
Right.
Suzanne isn't homeschooling. Suzanne isn't Catholicism. Suzanne isn't a health choice.
Right.
Suzanne is a separate soul entity that is unconditional love, is all of these things. That's my identity. So now if you say, but why did you choose not to do that? Oh, well, let me tell you, this is why.
Yeah.
I have no trigger.
Yeah.
Well, why are you doing energy work now?
Right.
I'm not triggered anymore because it's not my identity. You take those things away from me, I'm still me.
Now, see, I think you just found something for yourself.
Yeah. Don't we always?
Yeah. Like you just said that, and that resonates a ton. You are not the thing. You are not the action. You are you. You are apart from that thing. And it really does take zooming out.
Yes. And people who are safe enough to have the conversations with.
Yeah, because you don't want to feel attacked.
Right.
And you don't want to be, I don't know, manipulated or treated a certain way because you're asking questions. So it really does matter who you have the conversations with. Yeah. That was really good. That's powerful stuff.
That's
like,
why I'm so passionate about core values.
Yeah.
Because if you know your core values,
right,
nothing can shake them.
Yes. So even for me, like, let's turn it on to that.
Yeah.
Like, use myself as an example. Being a Reiki practitioner, and I know my core values, you can say whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Because I know at my core
who you are,
who I am, and what's right.
And why you're doing it.
And why I'm doing it. I know my intentions. Oh, and why we do things. So that's a human story too, because a lot of times we do things for the ego.
Yes.
So you have to check yourself.
The human is the ego.
Yeah. And so if we think we're doing it for...
And the human is the mind. The soul is the heart.
Well, I didn't know that. You just taught me something. But if we're doing things because we want accolades or recognition, and there's nothing wrong with wanting recognition.
No,
I mean,
absolutely
I'm a
not.
projector. I love recognition.
You thrive when you're recognized, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
But there has to be pureness in what it is that you're doing. Why are you doing the things you're doing? Why do you believe what you believe? These are all the questions we have to ask ourselves all the time.
And I think a lot of the time, the leap from the human story into the soul story, and you're going to go back and forth. There's highs, lows, peaks, valleys. It's just the moments, how long until you recognize you're too much in your human versus your soul. You have to look at it as a spectrum, because you're not going to be perfect because it's the human experience, right?
Right.
But when you are in your human story and you're like, but how do I get to my soul story? How do I access that level of awareness? When you are in your mind, you are trying in your ego, and ego is not just, we're taught to think it's arrogant. Not at all.
Right.
Ego keeps us safe, right? It keeps us and it wants to protect us, but it can only base its knowledge on the past, what has already happened. The heart, the soul story is in the now. And so, because that's how you feel things, it's how you sense things. Your body is trying to give you those signals. When you feel like you are just in your mind and you're trying to think it through, intellectualize things, even intellectualizing the whys and the hows and the whos and the patterns and all of those things have their value. But when you stay there, you're like, but this happened because this person did this to me at age 10 and this is the bit. While that all has meaning and value, at some point, you're going to go, but who cares?
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything. Then you jump into your heart space.
Yeah.
And that's when you can feel it and go, okay, yes, but this is what's going to happen moving forward.
Yeah.
That's when you realize you've shifted and your soul has expanded its story, because you're no longer staying in the confines of the who's and the hows and the what's and intellectualizing it, because the mind can only intellectualize and repeat it so many times.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're hitting your head against the wall and you can't shift and you can't get beyond it. And you can't get beyond, an experience or a betrayal or something. That's when you'll get to that point where you're like, okay, enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's when
you surrender. Yeah.
Into the soul story.
Oh, well, that's where I am this week. If you were wondering.
This morning I was in that space. So I don't care where you are in your journey. We are all on our journey.
Yeah.
And some of us have experiences where we can be tour guides to everyone else. And that same person is a baby in another arena as far as experiencing something.
Well, and what's hysterical is knowing this stuff and then still needing to hear it again. So literally, just to bring up my experience this week, my therapist is like, so the answer is to surrender. And I'm like, girl, do I know that? Yes, because I tell everybody that, but I apparently needed to be told that today.
The healers need healers.
She's like, you have to surrender. And I'm like, girl, do you look at my podcast? Like, I literally have an entire episode on the art of surrendering. Yeah.
But you need more embodiment. That's the thing where people are like, be you. Okay, but if you don't know who you are and where you're at and your level of awareness, it's just surface level.
And that's the journey. And what's funny, though, is what you're saying about ego and then the heart. It's like, so then I put on my human design cap. And the ego is the heart in human design.
Ah, I didn't realize that.
Yes. But to be told the ego is wrong or bad, that is not true.
Not at all.
It's not death of the ego. It's healthy ego.
And recognizing its value.
Right.
It wants to keep you safe.
Yeah.
It wants to make the right decisions for you.
And do you have an undefined heart? I'm going to look at your chart.
I can't remember.
I don't think you do. No, you're defined.
I think I'm defined.
Yeah, I am too. So like the journey of someone with a defined heart looks totally different than someone with an undefined heart. And I have a lot of undefined hearts around me. And to see the theme there and the need to prove. I have to prove myself worthy and the struggle to say no and have boundaries and that willpower is totally different than like our experience in life and what that looks like. And I might just be going off on a weird tangent, but I don't know. It's like, it's the ego. When you have an undefined heart in human design, the ego is tricky. It's a tricky little bugger because you might lack that ability to have that self-confidence.
That inner knowing of your worth.
Right.
And even though, I see in others what they don't see in themselves. And people tend to think, oh, you're super confident and you know your worth. Well,
Right.
I never really struggled with the confidence issue.
Right.
But when you get deep enough, there's always a worthiness
For sure.
aspect
And am
to
I
it.
enough?
Yes.
Yeah.
And even if it's, am I enough for myself? Am I enough for what I was created to be? So sometimes it's not, I want to prove my worth to the outside world, to anyone else. I honestly, it's more of, am I missing the boat? Am I missing what I'm supposed to be doing? So then there's always a level of awareness there that.
Yeah, like that's your story that you say.
And that's the human story.
Yeah, and that's the human story. So my human story, my story there is like, who am I to say anything?
Yeah.
Who am I? I struggle with this still. Like, so who am I to help somebody else? Or like Richie and I might have a disagreement that turns into a fight, that turns into a whole thing. And it's like, oh, but I'm like literally coaching couples. But it's when you zoom out, the human story is, yes, we just had a fight and we had to work through that. But the soul is like, oh, now guess what? It's hysterical to me now. My clients come in and they will have had a disagreement almost identical to the disagreement Richie and I had a week before. And I was like, oh, okay.
And now you're embodied.
And now I've embodied it. Because
Yes.
guess what? I can empathize with
Yes.
you in ways that I wouldn't be able to
and
had
you'll
I
have
not
the
experienced
insights.
it.
You'll have the insights.
Right.
For me, I have a history of a lot of miscarriage. And so I have the insights, not just the empathy.
Yeah.
Because so many, I think everyone would say they have empathy for a woman who experienced loss, but it is such a, and even I tell women, it's such a personal grief
Yeah.
that even though I have that experience, I still don't know the depths of your own personal grief.
Right.
And that's another thing, talking about identity, going back to identity, I became that identity in that season in my life where I was having loss after loss after loss. And I became the woman who loses children, loses babies.
And then that was your human story.
And that went into my human story versus if I had zoomed out on everything that gave me embodiment and just depth.
Yeah.
And someone, I maybe should have set a trigger warning, but someone who has experienced that and is in the throes of their grief isn't going to want to hear that.
Right.
But it truly is something that changes you, and if you allow it, will grow you and make you feel the depths of unconditional love and grief and loss. But yeah.
Well, it's when you have these experiences, you can really sit in the darkness with people in a different way.
Yes.
Than someone who has had none of these experiences.
Exactly.
And so we talk about you don't just become a healer, you are first wounded. It's the wounded healer
Yes.
that comes forth. And that is you. Wounds to wisdom. And so I am so grateful that you came here today and shared all this. It's been long overdue, but perfect timing at the same time. I think this was exact perfect timing because I don't know. We grow and change all the time.
Our conversation would have been different a year ago.
It would have been so different a year ago. And even this week specifically, the two of us, before we started recording, were discussing how, like, oh my God, we're healing another layer.
Yep.
Like, here we go.
Thought that
again.
layer was done.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like to be able to share that, when we're ready. Because you don't want to bleed all over people.
Exactly.
Share your scars, not your scabs. But
Oh, I like that.
you know who said that was Kristen Boss. I heard her say that once.
Really?
Yeah.
I do like that.
I know. It's good.
I like that. It's good.
But that's the thing is like we don't want to sit in this victim space. We want to be in
But then
this...
scars get locked in. So you do have to keep healing and keep
nurturing.
nurturing it and massaging it so it doesn't lock itself into place.
Oh yeah, real ironic you would use that word because I got a massage yesterday, and she's intuitive. And she's like, "You're holding it all in your hips," and I'm like, "Yep, I know. Thank you. Thank you for noticing."
Now work it out there.
Right. Anyways, Thank you so much for coming and chatting with me and sharing this. And I would say anybody who wants to learn more from you, go hit up your Instagram. You have a Facebook group that you are always so good about sharing in. And what else you got going on? You got a website?
I do. I have a website that has all the things. So it's just SuzanneMellott.com.
So easy.
So easy. My podcast is called The Healing Frequency.
Oh.
So
where's Wisdom?
That was the first iteration of the podcast names, but I talk about that when it's just you turning your wounds into your wisdom. So that's definitely.
Well, I love the healing frequency because there's so much in those words right there. Just like the frequency in which you are living.
Yes.
Where are you?
And where is your healing frequency?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you want to be living within your healing frequency.
Right.
And then we have a multi-author book launching September 21st. And so there's more information about that on my website as well.
And I'll link all of it too.
Cool.
I'll put all that in the show notes.
All that's on there.
Oh, thank you so much, my love.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I love you.
Oh, I love you. I crack myself up sometimes. These voices. Okay. I hope you loved that conversation. I want to share my takeaways from it. So, takeaway number 1. Why do you believe what you believe? I feel like this question rings through quite a bit. We have to ask ourselves this on a regular basis. And one thing I really want to make clear is anytime when her and I were talking about me kind of challenging her beliefs, it was never, ever in a way to try and steer her in another direction. It was more about, let's dive into that. Why do you believe that? And do you really believe that at your core? Or is it just what somebody told you? Because we need to be able to feel it. So being able to dive into these things and really get clear on what's yours and what was just given to you, that was the point. Creating self-awareness and not just going along with things blindly. Whatever you believe and feel is okay, but just know what's actually yours versus what you've been taught or conditioned to think and believe. Takeaway number 2 is, my gosh, can we just be in a space of no judgment? We all make decisions based on what we feel is best for our lives. And how can you create space for people to have safe conversations with you? And if that's not something you want to do, that's okay. But really being able to be in this place where you don't have judgment for others, no matter what their decision is. Really, I won't even give examples. It might get too political if I do. But being able to stand in the middle and say, okay, I feel strongly about my position and what I believe, but I can hear you and I can respect you over there. I think that is like one of the best gifts we could ever give each other as a human race, is just to be able to say, you know what? You do you, boo. And I have no judgment for it. Takeaway number 3. How can you heal the wounds from childhood? Go into that space and heal it, because the armor you're wearing for protection is no longer serving you. And we talked about this when she was talking about her meditation that she did, and then she channeled what she channeled to add to her chapter in the book, which I will link below in the show notes, so you can get on that wait list or get it ordered if it's already out by the time you're listening to this. The whole point, though, is the same as the title of that book, which is Healing the Wounds of the Past. Being able to go in and do that healing on that little version of you that you may not even realize needs it. It's something that just will naturally come up when you go into that meditation. And being able to go give that 6-year-old, that 8-year-old, that 10-year-old a hug and give her what she needs will heal you in the now. 4th takeaway, serve all, love all. This kind of goes along with the no judgment, but I really wanted to throw it in here. It's a mantra that I heard years ago. I have it on a coffee mug and I say it all the time. You know, how can we honor each other just a little bit more? And then takeaway number 5 is human story versus soul story. I loved this section of our conversation. We get caught up in the motions and even sometimes the emotions, and we miss the mark. We kind of miss that zoom out opportunity. So to take a step back isn't necessarily easy. But getting clear on the story you're telling yourself and having that ability to be self-aware can really help you to shift your perspective on whatever it is that you're going through. Because for a lot of us, a lot of times, we will feel like we will get caught up in that idea that everything bad happens to me. I'm constantly struggling, yada, 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 whatever it is that you might be telling yourself. Life is happening to me, not for me. And sometimes really bad crap just happens. And I will not invalidate that. Ever. Life is freaking hard sometimes. But once we can get away and zoom out, like we got to get out of that space, that's when you can really see what's the human story and what's your soul story. And then lastly, we can check all of the boxes and think through things. But at some point, we must surrender. And that is the key. We must surrender, surrender, surrender. So you can do the work. You can check off the boxes. But you got to really feel into that. Really, truly let go and free fall into the universe. And sometimes you have to do it again and again and again, which is what we were talking about. I personally have a wound that I have had since childhood, and I have surrendered that thing every so many years. And then it surfaces up and it's like, oh, we have to heal this in a new way. It's time to heal a new layer. You do feel better. There is hope. You can feel better, but it's okay if it comes up again and again and again. You just got to keep surrendering. That is the answer. All right, my loves, thank you so much for listening. I really, really hope you got so much out of this conversation. And if you did, I would be so grateful if you shared it. And last but not least, as always, please remember, you are loved and you are valued and you are appreciated.